I know I'm a little late to the party as normal, but I just finally got in the latest Super 7 Club Grayskull Filmation inspired figures for Masters of the Universe. They're a mixed bag, but let's get them under the lights and check them out. Teela here, when posed, doesn't look that bad. But as soon as you get around to her backside, you'll notice she has 2 butt cheeks. And that is the big flaw with her, and we're just going to get right into it. If you look here, pop off the accessories, her thighs are very messed up. What's happened here is that the post here is too long. So you see this one's a lot shorter, so it doesn't snug up. So yeah, she's going to have a thigh gap for days. Even pushed as close together, it doesn't look as bad, but it's still just, it's just wonky. And then again, her butt cheek has an extra butt cheek on the back. But hey, again, who displays their figures from behind, right? Other thing odd about this is check out her thumb. It is completely like a pointy spike. It's very tiny. It's the same way on both hands, and it just was immediately noticeable to me and just looks super weird. Her face sculpt looks okay. I don't find it amazing. And I know it's been a source of much debate online, and I'll put a picture of the animation next to her, and you can see if you think it's close enough or not for you. I mean, it'll be fine on a shelf for me, but I mean, it definitely leaves some to be desired. Aside from that, you know, it's kind of typical stuff. Typical articulation. The head articulation on mine scares me. If I try to get her to look to the right, she kind of bounces back into position. It's a little harder to see on camera, but what that tells me is that the plastic is twisting and not turning. So there it actually did turn a notch. Can't get any up or down, but honestly I'm too afraid to really try to turn it. It's just going to break. Aside from that, the articulation is pretty normal. Standard Masters of the Universe stuff. You know what you're getting here. I'm not going to go over all of it. Doesn't seem to be an ankle tilt that most of them twist right here, and you'll see on some of the rest of the way they twist fine. It might twist, but if it does, it's not going well on mine, and I obviously don't want to break my toy. Her top, the bronze kind of colored piece, gold, it's been glued together right here, so unlike some of the earlier ones, you can't take the clothing off and mess around with it. It is stuck on. Compare that here with the previous release, and where you can pop them off and play with them all day long. She has her shield, which is just solid plastic, and that's totally fine. That's the way the other ones were too. You should be able to notice that it has a bigger piece and a skinnier piece, and that shows you which way to line it up on the arm. It goes on fine. The sword, unfortunately, has a bent tip. How it is. And you can see she does hold her sword fine, even with that weird-ass thumb. So yeah, she's very much a mixed bag. Man-at-Arms here is much better fared. He's not perfect either, but again, much better fared. Bring in closer some detail. You can see the paint leaks a little bit. Mattel figures did that pretty often too, but overall, nothing I found super alarming. Unlike Teela, the ankle joints work fine, if not, honestly, maybe a little too loose. All the movement's fine, head movement's good, unlike Teela. Some oddities with him though. Let's look at his legs from the side here. And notice how much that thigh really kind of sticks out of the front. And the only reason I really noticed it is with him and Tri-Klops. At one point, transforming it, that actually got stuck in front of it, like that, and that kind of worked it back behind, and now it seems to be okay. But even from the side here, you can see how much this sticks out. Again, if we compare that to some previous releases, you can see it doesn't stick out near as much here. And from the side, it's the same story there. It's much closer up on the thigh, and here there's a much bigger gap. Again, it's not the end of the world, but just kind of more that Super7 still hasn't really mastered these. Another thing here is that the chest under here is nice and kind of dull and flat, where the legs are kind of shiny. Again, I think on the shelf it'll be fine. Some of the arms are a little shiny too, but I wish it was all more flat, like this lower abdomen piece, which does again match the style of these. You can see here the legs are much shinier on Man-at-Arms than here, where they're nice and flat. You got that matte look. Accessories wise, it comes with this, and this is pretty cool. On either wrist, there's a little hole here, and you can just get it flat side down, plug it in, and it just holds in there with friction. Pew pew. And so that's a pretty cool feature there. And it's just a solid orange club. It's fine. He holds it fine. And he has a machine gun or a periscope. You decide. And again, he holds it fine. Something odd about the accessories though, that they're just really rough looking. I'm hoping you can pick that up in there, but there, that looks just really rough. And on the edges here, it's not smooth at all. It looks like it was kind of rawly sculpted and not smoothed out, especially like here on the back of the gun. Again, really rough. It's another case of it's fine, but all of the accessories as we go through are going to be this way. Like you can see it here on the club as you go down. It's just all very rough looking. It almost looks like there's dripping paint. It's just that way all around. One thing with Man-at-Arms is his face sculpt is pretty nice. I'll put it next to the animation here so you can compare. But like the accessories, it has kind of a rough look to it. In a way, it kind of works. I kind of like it, admittedly. Some may not. Especially the helmet. It just doesn't, it's not smooth. It has rough spots on it. And kind of, you know, most of their new parts seem to be that way, like same with the arms and the shoulders. Like Teela here, his suit here is glued in, so you can't pop it off like the original releases. Tri-Klops here, boy did they fuck this up. To start with, as I'm sure you know, the head just does not turn. I'm gonna fix it. I know it's a lot of work, or at least I'm gonna try to fix it. I'll probably do that as a separate video just to help people out, but involves a good bit of willpower, force, and hair dry. And then of course the green is put in next to the animation here, and you can decide, is that close enough to you or not? It's not as bright in person as it seems in photos, but it's definitely not that darker, richer, earthier green that he had in the show. Similar to Man-at-Arms, his limbs are on the shiny side, but I mean it's okay. It's not that bad. His chest looks a little weird here. It looks a little sunken in. If you straighten it up and stand him up a little straighter, that goes away, and then you're bunching the rubber in the back, and I'm worried about that possibly damaging it over time. And again here, it's glued together, so you can't pop it off and play with it if that's your jam. All the articulation works fine, except again the ankle tilts. Here it can't go. Either the toy doesn't have it, or it's so tight that I'm worried it's going to break it if I try, and obviously I don't want to break it. And just like Man-at-Arms again, his thigh comes out quite far. It's not snug up on the joint like the original releases. And again, from straight on, his right thigh, it kind of clips out a little noticeably, but it's okay. His helmet isn't a flat look like what you would expect, except like right here there's a really glossy spot, like some paint dripped on or something, and that's kind of disappointing. He has a big sword, silver with gold accents, so it's nice to see one that was painted some, because most of them are not. The detail on it's nice. It's again a little rough, like looking down the edge, it's not a real smooth edge, it's kind of wobbly. A little gray gun, which again totally fine, but again kind of rough looking, like it's still a raw sculpt or something, and not painted over and not smoothed out. And he holds them fine. If they'd fixed the green on this guy, fixed his hat, this would have been a pretty solid release. As is, it's kind of pretty fucked up, unfortunately. Last we come to Hordak here, and I think overall he probably fared the best, him or maybe Man-at-Arms. But there's a lot going on with this guy. He has a nice looking chest here, but you can see again a good bit of paint bleed. Sometimes the black goes up the edges, and then sometimes the gray comes out the sides. And you know, if you go over the figure with a fine tooth comb here, you'll see that quite a bit where the paint just kind of goes outside the lines here and there. I find it fine. It doesn't really bother me, but I think it's worth noting out for some people. Probably the biggest problem here is, for me, is there's a black speck right there on his cheek. That is pretty noticeable, especially on the face. And on this side, his mohawk, the white paint goes up into the mohawk a bit. None of that really bothers me. Really just that black speck, and then I guess some flakes that are on the rubber piece as well. And I guess that's worth noting, this back here is all rubber, but it is not a suit on his chest like a lot of the other figures. It's a whole new torso. You'll notice here I've got it switched out with his main accessory, which is this extra arm. And it's a cannon, and it's pretty cool. Pretty awesome. The other arm is here, and if you're wondering why it's already on there and I don't show it, it's because this was hard as hell to get off. I actually had to take a spudger and push it in the joint and wiggle it loose and still pull a whole lot. I was really expecting that I was going to break it, and now that I've got it off, I don't want to mess with it anymore. So you can get it off. You need to be real careful with it. His thumbs are also kind of like Teela's, where they're really pointy. And looking back at the other figures, I guess Man-at-Arms is kind of the same. But it's just odd having that small pointy thumb. His articulation is fine everywhere, as you would expect. His ankles work. They're super loose, extremely loose for his duck feet. Maybe these duck feet are a new part, and that's why. It seems fine. You know, again, you can see here he's holding poses. Whoa. He stands up fine. It's not so bad that he's going to fall over or anything, but it's notable. His extra arm has a nice flat look to it, but again, we got kind of the shiny legs going on. Somewhat shiny arm, not too bad, and the same kind of oddities with the leg, although it's not as bad as on Man-at-Arms and Tri-Klops. Comes with this little dude, which I'll put his name on screen because I'm going to look up a picture of him on the animation to put next to it so you can compare for that. This is a pretty cool little accessory, a little pack-in, as well as this treasure chest that is from some episode that I haven't seen. Oh no, he's an evil treasure chest. So these are cool little pack-ins. I like these. So my overall verdict on these guys is just a real big mixed bag. So if we run down the figures, let's go over the negatives first. Man-at-Arms' right hip here really sticks out, as do some of the other male ones. And his legs and his arms are a little shinier than they need to be. And the new Sculpt pieces have a rough look to them. They're not polished. They're not fit. They're not smooth. Teela is just flat out assembled wrong with her thigh piece there, and it looks really bad. Her face is kind of hit or miss. Her sword tip is bent in, and her thumbs are just all sorts of jacked up. Tri-Klops is flat out defective. His hat doesn't spin, and it's quite a bit of work to try to fix it. There's glossy paint that is leaked onto it. His green is the wrong color. The connection strip in the back is too long, so that if you stand it up all the way, it bunches up, and I'm worried it'll damage it. Hordak comes with this great arm swap feature, but you're almost going to break the figure trying to get it out. And some of the paint work is a little sloppy. I think it's acceptable, except for that bit on the face. And again, there's a couple of noticeable bits up here on the bones going around his head. On the positive side, I do like all their accessories. I think Hordak has really good ones, and Man-at-Arms has really good ones too. I think Tri-Klops and Teela's are just acceptable. I think for the most part, they look the part. Teela's face is the only thing that really stands out. I'm glad to see the line continue. I think that's good. I think overall, they're going to mesh fine with some of the original releases if I throw them in here. I don't think it's going to be a huge case of where the earlier figures really stand out that much from the new ones. I think Super7 really needs to get their quality control under control. Some things I think are just unacceptable. The hip is unacceptable, the hat's unacceptable, changing the green is unacceptable. Other than that, I think there is overall more good here than bad. I'm hoping for Wave 2, Super7 really tightens things up and can give us the figures that they want to give us, I'm sure. So should you buy these? If they were all like these two, I would say yes, there's some flaws with these guys, but they're kind of minor overall. Compare that to these two where there's just straight up major issues. And I'm hoping for a Wave 2 that they don't have any major issues. If they have some minor ones, I can live with it. Even the original 7 figures from Mattel for the Filmation style, they weren't perfect. They had some paint that got out of the lines, for example, and some scale issues, minor scale issues here and there. But we can't have things like this hat doesn't work, the green's completely different, the leg's not assembled correctly, and the sword tip just flat out being bent in the package. So the line as a whole, overall I'm happy with it, but I should have been ecstatic about it, and I'm not. I also hope the sculpting gets smoothed out so it doesn't have such a rough look to it, and I hope they get the flat matte plastic look going on better for the rest of them so they fit in a little better. And I know I've been focusing on the negative on these guys, so it is good to point out the positives. They have a lot of accessories and some very cool accessories. Hordak in particular comes with some cool extra pack-ins. Most of the new sculpt work they've done looks nice. Like the new faces on these guys look really good, and some of the new parts are sculpted really well, even if not smooth. And the only really new sculpt that's questionable is Teela's noggin here. So they're doing some stuff right. Let's hope that this is just kind of first wave learning the ropes and learning with working some of the existing molds. Let's hope they can clean that up going into future waves. Thanks for watching. Let's wish Super7 the best and hope they can fix out things for the next wave. And when it gets out, I'll tell you all about it. See ya.